All right, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Fitness Simplified podcast. I'm your host, Joe Anklam, and today's guest is Cody Gambling. Cody is a former online client of mine who had worked with me for over a year. Cody had come to me first, really feeling like he was putting a lot of effort in both with his training in the gym as well as his nutrition, and really trying to focus on eating clean and really focusing on the things that he thought were the right things at the time. But we were able to revamp his focus, put his effort in the right places, and get him losing 20 pounds of fat. And then from there, we were actually able to reverse and get him into a bulk and get him really in the place that he never thought was possible. Both understanding why he was seeing those results and also getting to a place where he wanted to continue doing that for himself as well as others. And Cody is now in the infancy of his own personal training business. And this is a conversation that I think a lot of people can benefit from because he really goes in depth with his binge eating struggles as well as his entire journey with myself. So sit back and enjoy this podcast, guys. Getting into things right away, man. Tell them just a little bit about yourself. You know, how old you are, where you're from. What you do for a living, and what keeps you busy, man.
All right. So my name's Cody Gambling. 20 years old, currently living in Utah, central Utah. Right now I'm working as a commercial electrician, apprentice electrician. So that's what's been keeping me busy for the most part.
Awesome, dude. Awesome. So talk a little bit about, like I said, we're going to get into binge eating, and this is something that obviously we have struggled with, both of us actually, and this is something I really haven't talked about much either. But tell us a little bit more about your struggles with binge eating, when that started, because we'll get into our journey together, but I believe that was well before we got started together when that was happening, right?
Yeah, it was like way before. So basically it's just been a whole thing with food like my whole life. Probably when I was younger, it's probably like when it started, like first getting into like just like really like good tasting foods, like sweet foods. Like I'd probably say like the first thing that like turned me over to like really sweet tasting food was like oatmeal cream pies. And like just from there on it kind of segue into things like constantly eating without any control, just craving foods. Like a lot of the times, especially when we got like family get-togethers and family meetings, my family like, dude, just drink some water, stop eating. Like they would always tell me that. Just kind of put myself into a bad relationship with food. Um, Basically made up excuses to have food at any time I wanted. Like, so for example, like if I was going to want something like sweet tasting or just something like that, like for example, like a pop or something like that, I'd be like, you know what? It's fine. I can do it. I can drink it. And just kept on going into that, and then just kind of like segueing it into anything. Like ended up gaining like 100 pounds in 4 years. So just kind of went off and off and off and off. It's better now, a lot better now.
So not to cut you off, but where was your worst? How old were you, and like how tall were you, and how much were you weighing at like your peak, and what was that worst in terms of physically?
I was probably like about 16 years old. I think my highest recorded weight was 220 pounds.
Okay. And you're not a very tall guy. How tall were you?
I was probably like 5'9", 5'10".
Okay.
So I didn't really look the part as much. I did look a little huskier, but it did kind of affect me in just different ways.
Totally. So you were going through you were kind of making excuses for yourself as far as eating a lot, and being able to eat a lot, and then you just didn't really feel like you had a lot of control. So like, what shit, you said you got a little bit better control? I know that was right now, but like give me a timeline from obviously 16 till now. That's a lot of time. So like, what did that look like in terms of transition, especially like through high school and that sort of thing, man?
Well, like the biggest thing like probably really didn't change until like last year when we started working together. That's kind of when
No, totally. And but what did that look like? What did you try and maybe fail with? That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Okay.
In those years in between? Because I know you were definitely doing things like before we got together. What did that look like? Just because a lot of people might be going through the same sort of things where they're trying things, they're not seeing results. Like, what did that look like? Because I know you probably maybe went to the gym, right? You're trying to maybe eat healthier because there's probably a breaking point where you're like, this is not normal. And, I don't want to look like this and I don't want to keep gaining weight. So like, what did that look like? If that helps kind of get where I'm getting at.
Okay. So it basically all started like right after I hit that like high weigh-in. It was for football. We were doing things for football. And like my first initial thing was like, I wanted to gain weight because I just wanted to gain size. Because right before that, I started like watching like pretty much like Rich Piana videos, just started going off of that, started kind of getting into the bodybuilding, just looking at bodybuilding and stuff like that. And
Good old
that's
Rich.
yeah, what?
Good old Rich Piana, yeah.
The whole Rich Piana started off. But anyways, that's what kind of like started my transition into like wanting to change myself, just kind of like seeing how these guys, what they did with their bodies, and like it kind of appealed to me, and I just really liked it, and I kind of wanted to do it for myself. And just having like my mom as big as in fitness as she was, just kind
Okay.
of like just stuff like that. So
Gotcha.
what I tried, like one summer I lost like 40 pounds.
How old were you?
16. That was that same year.
That same summer. Okay.
Yep. So like that summer, but like I was like starving myself. I think I only ate like once a day, drank like 2 gallons of water a day, and then went to the gym after work. I was working at a fast food place. So like all I ate was like I just grabbed lettuce from the bin, dice it up, and throw fried chicken in it.
And this was the summer that you were eating, that you
Yeah,
lost weight?
yeah,
So that was like you losing weight, you were eating still fried chicken.
yeah,
So that proves right there that you can eat whatever you want to lose weight, even from just a losing weight standpoint, right?
exactly, exactly.
Because it was
But I
probably
can
less.
recommend
It was
eating one thing a day.
no, totally. But it proved right there. It was cleaner and less calories than you were eating before that. Clearly,
Obviously,
yeah.
and then yeah, so like I think I got down to like 180 like right before that. Right
Did you
before that.
work out at all?
Yeah, like I went to the gym.
Like
Like we had
lifting or
we had
okay
early morning lifts.
for
That
school for
yeah for
sports?
football. So yeah,
Oh, okay.
I
So
went
you
in
had the
there,
structure there. Okay.
worked out there. Like kind of was just going off those Rich Piana videos. No good structured workout program at all.
Better than nothing though, right? It's something.
Exactly. And then after that, like I don't know what happened. Just like that next summer, like I just gained 20 pounds. Just
Back?
got gained 20 pounds back.
Okay.
Got back up to like 215,
Mm-hmm.
and then I think I kept that weight for the rest of that year. So I was like my senior year ish. So no, it was like a year I went, and then a year I went with that 180, and then I gained that 20 back, and
So you're
then
back up at like 200.
yep.
And were you like kind of skinny fat at that point? Like you had a little bit of extra fat, or like how did you feel at that point? Like in terms of where you were at holding that kind of weight?
Um,
Because obviously, as we know, that's so relative weight wise. That could look like a lot of things.
I was pretty broad
Okay.
because now like I got into a point where the town that I lived in actually had a gym that I could go to 6 days a week. So I was just doing bro splits 6 days a week.
Okay.
Um, just did that. So I kind of got a little stocky, but nothing like relatively still skinny fat, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. So
But
then,
then,
so then you
okay.
like get through senior year. I think you were like that's kind of where you were before I cut you off. Was
Yeah.
it like kind of graduation then? Or like what did things look like there?
Yeah.
Because you're
Like right
obviously
after
done sports.
graduation, like it was like right after graduation. And then I went the whole summer. And then I was like, I really want to get back. I want to lose more weight. Like, just change my physique more.
Yeah.
So I started just like, that was like pretty much like 2 months before we started talking.
Okay.
And that's where I was like doing the excess cardio, eating like clean foods, but still binging. and then finally just kind of getting over things.
Okay, so perfect. So let's go into that a little bit more. So right before we started, so that was last year, that was October of 2018, that would have been at
Yep.
that time. So let's say, like that's summer, right? Summer 2018. What did that look like? What were you doing? Give some people some insight, because this is where people really could probably relate. What are they like? They're probably putting in a lot of effort. They're feeling like they're doing a lot of things. I know you were going to the gym. I know you were like trying to eat clean, doing the cliche thing. So give them a little insight what that looked like before we got started.
Okay, so before we got started, I was just kind of just going off of things like just basically like, just the norm. Eating cleaner, doing cardio, and lifting. That's what I was kind of doing. I was in consistent routine. Like there was nothing wrong, but like I had a little bit of success. Like I lost that 20 pounds, so I got out of my 200. And then where we were at, I was at 187. So I had like a little bit of progress, but I noticed I was like, like this isn't right.
Totally. But what were maybe some of like those negatives that like you were finding, like, because I know this is probably the same time, this is where you're binging, right? Where because of eating clean. So like what were some of those negatives where it's like, if you're eating clean, you're kind of having some negatives from that, or what did that look like in terms of, unstructured workouts, that sort of thing?
Yeah, the unstructured workouts were definitely huge for me. Kind of just going into the gym and be like, dude, I feel like hitting chest today, so I'm gonna do some chest movements, and then like after that, I was like, I'd always meal prep, so it'd like every single day it was like chicken, rice, and broccoli, and then I think I'd like eat like eggs and stuff in the morning, but like have nothing but PB&Js and peanut butter for snacks, and then like get towards the weekend and be like, you know what, I did good this weekend, so I'm gonna reward myself, and that's when the binging happened.
I see. And what would that binging look like? Like, what was the worst of that binging for you?
I don't know, just finding random things that I crave and just constantly eating them. Like,
was that the same level of like uncontrol that you had when you were younger?
yeah, definitely. Just like, you know what? Screw it. I'm gonna do it. Why not?
I hear you. Like almost like where it was like you couldn't shut it off essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I hear you. I hear you. And were you like tracking macros at this point? Were you checking calories? Was there anything you were doing there at all?
Nope.
Okay.
Nothing.
Okay. So fast forward to October, right before we start talking, what does things look like for you?
Tracking macros daily. I wasn't binging at all. I didn't really like feel the need to binge,
Mm-hmm.
but like I was still like meal prepping and everything, just kind of just staying consistent with our calorie goal that we had, protein goal we had, and like I just didn't feel any room that I needed to binge.
Totally. So this is, and even before we get started, so when we first start talking, I realize, you're putting in a lot of effort. There's a lot of things you're doing right, but where were you at, would you say physically, when we got started? I know our goals were mainly fat loss right away. So where were you feeling like right when, at the point where you're like, all right, let's do this, when you contacted me to get started with online coaching?
Um, well, like I didn't really think much of coaching when I started off, when I first reached out to you.
Yeah. Did you
Like,
follow me for a while? How long did you follow me?
I don't even remember. Like, I kind of just like, I don't know if one of us follow each other, but I just remember seeing your stuff kind of like pop up on my timeline. And then like, I didn't know much about the online coaching fit community or anything like that previous.
Mm-hmm.
Like I knew like a few people, like a few big names, like Joey Swole or like a few other of those guys. So I was like, I wonder what it would be like. And then you posted a link to fill out a form, like an application form. And then I think like a week later you called me.
Awesome. So in terms of overall, like, did you have some kind of like skepticism with the coaching?
Yeah. Like my biggest skepticism was like, who is this dude? Like, why does he want to help me? Like, I've never met him in person, so why should I send him money?
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
No, totally, dude. And overall, so what was the coaching experience like for you when we got things going, and what did that change in terms of that structure in your mind, with especially with the binging and just your relationship with food? What did that look like? And we'll kind of start with that, just to give them kind of an overview, like after you were like, hey, I pulled the trigger, things went good. What did that experience look like for you, man, to fill them in a little?
Um, I'd say like the biggest things that changed for me was just basically understanding like the no BS terms in the actual fitness community, like with everything with like energy expenditure and all that. Like my relationship with food, that helped a lot, especially knowing that certain foods won't make you fat. It's just the overall intake. So if you're excessively just over consuming your energy needs, that's what's going to make you fat, not the food. Like that pretty much like helped all.
So the knowledge side of things.
Yeah, the knowledge side of things.
Totally, totally, especially nutritionally, because then you're like, okay, like I understand that I can eat these foods, but it's just about being reasonable with things towards my goals and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and just not like being completely hard on yourself, like this, and this, and not that, and that.
Totally, totally. So what else in terms of the coaching experience, like what did that look like for you in terms of, what helped and that sort of thing, like the accountability side of things? What did that look like in terms of our relationship together? How did that, really affect things along the way, um, for yourself, man?
Um, the accountability did help a lot. It was really nice just to kind of have you there, just kind of realizing like, hey, you're okay, keep going, you're fine. And then I guess overall, the big things that like helped me and like change, having a better structured routine, that helped a lot. So I'm not constantly just going in the gym like, hey, I feel like doing this, so I'm going to do this. Just constantly spinning my wheels, going back and forth. Um, Definitely with nutrition, that helped a lot, especially just having like a set calorie range for the day and just like a protein goal for the day. Like having those two just to shoot for kind of helped me out a lot.
Totally, totally. So tell them a little bit more specifically. Let's get into your journey. So when we got started, like I said, you had a little bit of extra fat we wanted to get rid of, but we also knew we wanted to add some muscle, right? We're
Mm-hmm.
kind of in that like skinny fat phase, like a lot of people are, right? Where it's like, you're kind of in between. So when we got into things, we were trying to lose body fat. So tell them what that looked like when we were trying to lose body fat. Did I drop your calories super low? Did I tell you had to restrict things? Or what did that look like for you while we were losing that body fat? Because we lost about 20 pounds in about 3 months.
Yep. Yep. We lost 20 pounds in about 3 months. There was like zero restriction, which I thought was going to be like crucial. I thought there was going to be like a bunch of restrictions. Like, you can't eat this, you can't eat this, that. I was like, okay. And then like cardio every day and like all this. But like really, like we barely dropped any of my calories from what you showed me. And like I was never really starving myself or anything. Always, yeah.
Good, good, good. Yeah, no, that's huge, and I think that's super key, because that's how a lot of my clients feel when they're starting to eat more protein and it's more filling, and they're just like, wow, I feel like I'm not really, starved ever. My hunger's not really affecting me too much. But no, I think that's key. And explain a little bit more what you mean by like no restrictions, because obviously there's some restrictions there, but what do I
Yeah,
mean by that in terms of what that looks like? Just because, even for you, when I first might have said that, you might be like, what do you mean no restrictions? Like, but get into that a little bit more in terms of just that relationship with food and kind of how that looks black and white wise, good and bad. Because you can explain that well.
like yeah, I thought like it was gonna be like, all right, these are the foods that you can eat, just like basically like kind of like cut at the end, like good food, like fruit, veggies, and then like rice and like some sort of protein source. And then I didn't think like anything like I couldn't eat like PB and J's, like I couldn't eat so forth and so on, like just like your normal like processed foods. Typically you want to stay away from them, but still you're not going to be like, hey, don't eat that.
Exactly. And that's really where having a life comes into play, right? It's just about balance. It's not like, oh yeah, eat cookies all the time, or like we are talking about eating your lettuce and fried chicken diet. But at the end of the day, like there's people out there who've done studies just to prove the point that it's about moderation at the end of the day, and true moderation. That's the key. Where that just it gets abused often. So that's key. So okay, so we lose 20 pounds during that time. How did the gym performance get affected by things? Did you lose a bunch of muscle, and how did that go?
Didn't lose any muscle really. Noticed a lot of more tone to come in, and just kind of overall muscle size kind of came in after those 3 months.
So you gained muscle, actually, did you say?
Not a whole lot, just more like just got tone more. Just
What
something
about
more.
strength in the gym?
Strength in the gym did go up. I noticed strength previously.
Awesome. So which might even be, if anything, you definitely didn't lose muscle. That's kind of the key there, though.
Yeah.
Awesome. And what do you think that had to do with? Was it maybe just the fact that we weren't starving ourselves, where you had enough energy to put forth in the gym, and structured routine wise? It's like you're eating the same amount normally, but I think you were probably executing a lot more efficiently with the gym.
Yeah. I think all those came into play, and I also think protein was a huge one as well.
Better recovery,
Mm-hmm.
strength wise too, as well.
Yep. More
For
intensive,
sure.
more
I hear you,
focus.
dude. Yeah. No, that's key. I think that's very good for a lot of people to hear, because, most people, if they can't see a tangible change, or they don't see it like a noticeable change from doing something, it's hard for them to buy into it. So, but that's one where it's like, wow, I really feel stronger, without even changing much, just increasing your protein intake. So as we lose 20 pounds, man, what happened then? How did we go from there, as far as how do we adjust things? And, because people are like, all right, so I lose my, the weight that I want, or, do I lose weight forever, or do I just stay dieting forever? What do we do then, man?
So, excuse me. We went like kind of we started doing like reverse dieting. We started to add more calories in. We started going off at my maintenance phase. I think we went at like a maintenance level of calories for about, I want to say, a month. And then we went straight into a surplus. And then just as the year provoked on, I was able to add in more and more and more calories. Like when I got off my last surplus, I was eating 3,800 calories. And then when we were in my cut, I think I was at like 21 to 2,300 a day.
Totally. So what was the lowest we ever dropped your calories?
I think that 21.
2,100. So we were losing weight, and we lost at 20 pounds eating over 2,000 calories.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. And the thing we do want to keep in mind is the fact that Cody is doing a hard labor job, which is going to keep his non-exercise activity thermogenesis, or NEAT, is the acronym we like to say. Basically his activity throughout the day besides working out, right? How many calories he's burning besides working out, that's very high. So that does help his cause. If Cody was someone who was sitting at a desk all day, that would definitely drastically decrease the amount of calories that he would probably be able to diet on. But that's also because he's working out almost 6 or 7 days in the gym, 6 days lifting for sure. So that's kind of the big point there. Other thing he was getting at was the fact that we actually lost the 20 pounds. We were obviously in a deficit, which means his input versus output was in a deficit, right? So he's literally losing, in this case, body fat, and ideally maintaining muscle mass. So the key is, and as he was mentioning, he was getting leaner. So that shows us that we're maintaining muscle because he was maintaining his strength in the gym. And it also tells us that we're losing body fat by getting more toned, as he was mentioning as well. And that's key, because you don't want to just lose weight in general, which could be muscle mass. And that's where protein intake, structured routine, all these things that we're discussing matter so much. But then it's like, all right, we were at a point where he was pretty lean. Like he was fairly lean, but he's like, all right, now I want to add muscle strategically, right? So what we did was, instead of just thinking, all right, good luck, like how are we going to do that? Figure it out. Hopefully we start building muscle with a deficit worth of calories. No, that's not how it works. We have to bring those back up, but we have to do it slowly. Not too slow where you're going to be miserable along the way, but enough where your body's able to adapt and you're able to not put on an excessive amount of body fat. That's the key. So from here, we were at about 2,100 calories, and we slowly started increasing things back up. So from there, we increased things and we adjusted. We increased things, we adjusted. In between those increases, we're looking at variables. His weigh-ins, how he's feeling in the gym, which he should be feeling better. He's getting more calories. His hunger, how he's feeling mentally, right? His relationship with food, if he's binging at all, right? All these things matter. And that's where your relationship with your client is so key. But from here, we were able to get him to understand why we were doing things the way we are. And from here, his gym sessions were only getting better, right, Cody? He was only improving. He only felt better in the gym. And quite honestly, Cody, did you put on much body fat really at all?
Not really. Not noticeably. No.
Other than in an amount that was actually helping his cause, he really didn't put much on because of the rate we were actually increasing those calories back in. And it wasn't like we were being super, like he was in this miserable state where we had to change all these things all the time. It was just assess every week, see where things are at, and make adjustments as needed. So as Cody increased things back up, we eventually went into a surplus of calories where our goal actually changed. Instead of maintaining for about a month, as he said, so we maintained the weight loss goal that we had gotten to. Then we actually changed our goal to actually increasing and actually gaining weight steadily throughout the week. So we went into a surplus. So again, that input versus output. Now we hung at maintenance where it was about the same, from a deficit to maintenance, then into a surplus, because that's how he's going to be strategically, literally able to build muscle in the process, have good workouts, feel good in the gym, and have enough calories to support that. So then we peaked at how many calories, Cody?
38.
3,800. So that is the amount of literally the change. So that's almost like 2,000 calories or so that he was able to increase from his deficit to where he was actually gaining weight in a surplus. And so, Cody, now, what do you look like right now? How do you feel in the gym? Just give them some of examples as far as like where you're at now and really where things are for you just in your lifting career. When you look in the mirror, confidence, relationship with food, give them that insight.
So definitely there's a lot more confidence in my body than previously before, especially since after we got done with that 20 pounds down. Since then, it's been about 10 pounds gained in muscles. So definitely noticing a lot more confidence, a lot more self-esteem in my body. Relationship with food, it's really good right now. Like, I don't really ever stress myself about food anymore. Like, just whether or not if I should eat it or if I should not, all this. If I want it, I just fit it into my calories for the day, and that's it. And strength, performance-wise, have been going up in the gym, especially performance, I would say. I don't think I would have been able to do like a lot of this if I didn't start with you, like where I'm at now.
Totally. And what do you think the biggest takeaways were from our coaching experience? What do you think the biggest things you learned were? I think you already touched on it, but just reiterate what like the biggest things were where you're like, okay, this really changed the game for me mentally.
Okay. The biggest things that I learned and like kind of just apply now is just basically calories in versus calories out, obviously. Having a good structured routine, not bro splits type deal, just more better ways of lifting, just more like push-pull workouts type deals.
And more optimized in terms of frequency and just the strategy behind the routine.
Exactly.
And really just having a routine is the biggest thing, but even more so from there.
Exactly. And just like, yeah, that's basically my biggest takeaways that I learned. And then I just do self-studying as well. So
Totally. No, I think that's awesome, man. And my last question is, would you recommend, this journey and overall support, accountability to someone who's in a place where they maybe, they've struggled with binge eating, they've struggled with, lack of routine, or, maybe tried other meal plans or different diets and just lack success overall? Do you think that would be something where, that would be what you'd recommend to them, is support, planning, the accountability, and really something like online coaching?
yeah, I think it's something that they could benefit from crucially, especially if they're just going around spinning their wheels back and forth. once you get into a structured routine and just kind of get daily disciplines, you can do a lot in a short period of time.
Totally. No, I agree, man. And one thing I want to touch on before we kind of stop here is my own relationship with binge eating. So I used to wrestle. This is actually something I've never really touched on before. So I actually used to wrestle back in high school. I wrestled for only 2 years. And the 1 year that I really struggled with binge eating and really didn't even know it was binge eating until I got, more educated on nutrition within the last couple of years here. But it was my freshman year of high school, and I was basically walking around. I've always been a smaller guy, but I was walking around at about 125, about 125 pounds. And I had come off my middle school year, my 8th grade year. So I got into high school, and I wrestled my first year in middle school. So I was like, well, I want to go out for wrestling. It seems like a good idea. It'd be fun. So I did. So it was good. It was good experience. I got things going. And as I got into things, I realized that I could make the 112 wrestling division, the weight class. So, like I said, I was about 125 pounds though, right? So obviously there's a problem there. And I was even trying to get to the 103 class. I was thinking about it. So this is really where I started to realize, I had to do that if I wanted to make varsity and wrestle varsity as a freshman. So, at this point, coaches who are not very educated, people who just don't really have much knowledge on nutrition are the ones who are like, yeah, no, you can make 112, Joe, that'll be fine. So, I try it, right? And this is where things started to kind of go haywire. So when I first realized that, like, the first tournament was coming up and I needed to make weight, and I'm like, 10 pounds or more heavier than I need to be, yeah, I got to make that happen. So the first day, I remember it was the middle of winter, wrestling season's in winter here in Wisconsin. And the first day, I literally ran home from practice. It was a Saturday morning practice. We had a tournament, I believe, in like a few days, because we were on winter break, I remember. So, or we had some sort of a day off of school or whatever it was. But I remember I had 2 days basically to make weight for like a tournament that we had coming up. So I ran home. I ran home from school, and I would never have run home. I would have called my dad to pick me up. And so I ran all the way home, which is not that far. It's a couple miles or so, but I ran home and I checked the scale right when I got home. That was the beginning of it, right? Check the scale right when I got home. And that's part of it too, where the relationship with your scale can be really, it really can be not so ideal, especially if you have a negative relationship with food as well. So that's basically how it started, right? And then from there, that whole season, right? Every Thursday night we had a meet and I had to cut weight, right? I had to run practices. I would wear long sleeves, sweatpants, Under Armours. Sometimes I'll lose 8 pounds in a practice, 10 pounds in a practice. Obviously we know that's water weight, but nonetheless, that's not good for me. I'd go home, eat an orange, piece of fruit, something super small. And then what would happen if I had a tournament or Thursday meet? Right after I'd weigh in, literally the same night, right before I was about to go wrestle and perform, try to be at my physical peak performance, I'd stuff myself with whatever I brought to weigh-ins, in my backpack. So PB&Js, right? Like chips, right? Like anything and everything. I would have Gatorade, stuff like that would help me, but I didn't know the first thing about what I was supposed to, ingest after cutting, like let alone what I should have been eating while trying to cut, right? Instead of just gorging myself. Because after I got done, Friday came around, that weekend came around, I'd go to Buffalo Wild Wings, I'd go to McDonald's, I'd go eat candy, I'd do whatever I wanted because I was like, dude, this sucks. And it was when I started to realize, like what I was actually doing to myself from a mental standpoint, because I felt it, but I didn't realize like how much of a lasting effect that would have had on me. So when I got into fitness, when I started to realize, I was maybe going to play college football, I needed to put on weight when I stopped wrestling. I really stopped wrestling because I wanted to gain weight, not even because of my relationship with food, but it made me start to realize, like, hey, this is something now, where I can really put you in a drastic spiral. And I have clients now who are MMA fighters or boxing, and people who are trying to cut weight and get to a certain weight class. And, there's certain things that you're going to have to always do if you want a strategic edge. But if you want to do it in a smart way, and even UFC fighters now, they're doing it in a better way, it'll make a big difference for you in the long run if you're doing it in a smarter manner, just based on your performance of how you're actually going to be feeling. And for our case, living, and feeling in the gym. So anyways, that's kind of my little take on it. I still, even now, will have some days where I have a little bit harder of a relationship with food, but some tips that I found and that I give clients are the environment that you're in, right? So if you have a husband, if you have a significant other, family, whatever that is, because you can control what you have around you, that's key, right? But if they have things around you, that can tempt you, that's theirs, just make them aware of what your goals are, that's bothering you, and you need them to have that, hidden or whatever, out of sight, out of mind is what I like to say. your environment, your household, your workplace. All those things are key. So don't be afraid to let people know, especially people who care. They should care enough to be able to be supportive of your goals. That's number one. The second thing, if you deal with binges, if you're someone who deals with binges, this is the tip I got. I've heard a lot of people use, especially people who deal with people who really have severe binging issues or eating disorders, especially regarding binging. When you feel a binge coming on, basically you want to set a timer for 20 minutes, right? When you feel the urge to binge, set a timer for 20 minutes and have a glass of water. And basically what you're doing there is you're going to basically take that time to assess whether or not your hunger levels are actually at a point in which you are actually hungry, or you're just doing it because you're bored, you have nothing else to do, or because there's a food that's tempting you around you, right? So in that 20 minutes, a lot of times what you can do is you can actually think about, what's going on, or sometimes you'll distract yourself. And a lot of times you actually might be hungry and you can eat a meal then. But since you drank a glass of water, that's going to help your hunger already. And it's also going to help you to get to a point where you literally will feel better because you are thinking about whether or not this is actual hunger or just your body and your mind telling you that you should be eating. So that's just a quick tip. It's something that really has benefited a lot of people. But otherwise, this is also where, having support, having a coach, and having a guided system overall is going to help you along the way if you're dealing with something like that. So any final comments at all, Cody?
No, man, not that I can think of. But a quick tip that I kind of want to chime in that's kind of helped me with mine is chewing gum and drinking water. That's what helped with mine. Just kind of get in the feeling of actually like chewing and then just kind of drinking water as well, just kind of making me more full.
Totally. So anything can kind of curb that hunger, keep your mind focused, and
Yep, pretty much. Like a few guys at
like
work, they've asked me, they're like, dude, did you used to smoke a while ago with how much you chew gum? I was like, no. I don't ever go
similar
into it.
though, in terms of the food's not an addiction. There's obviously a lot of research and there's a lot of back and forth about addiction of food, but it's definitely something that takes time to be able to get, into the proper habits and just really be able to practice moderation reasonably. So if there's things that you can do to help your cause, I think that's key. And I think another big one is if you do binge, you're trying to figure out, what are the causes of those binges, whether that's emotional triggers, something that happened in your past, whether you use it as a comfort thing. So I think that's also a big thing that people really need to look into to find that root cause. So that's going to only help your ability to actually get rid of, those negative habits that you have.
Exactly.
So, because I think so much of it is mental.
Yeah, for real though.
So, but yeah, well, I appreciate it, Cody. Definitely gonna have you on again, man. And this is a great talk. I want to have you on again, talk about kind of your journey now that we've evolved you a little bit from fitness client also into my mentorship program. So we'll talk more about that on another podcast. So if you guys enjoyed this, please leave a like below, and please leave some comments if you have any comments. If you'd like to see another topic, anything you'd like us to cover, myself and Cody, or me in a separate podcast, please let me know. But thank you guys for watching, especially if you're still watching. And I will talk to you guys in the next one. Make sure you subscribe and also click that notification bell if you are on YouTube, because that'll also notify you when I do upload any of my videos. So thank you guys for watching. Like I said, for Cody and myself, this is the Anklam Athletics podcast. See you guys in the next one.